Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this week we have a lot to talk about with iOS 18, AI updates, Apple might be making robots, and a first look at the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max. This is your weekly Apple News update for the week of April 8th, 2024. Tim Cook this week sold 200,000 shares of Apple stock valued at about $33 million. He has much more, but just wanted to offload some. Maybe he needs some extra cash or something along those lines. Apple's next earnings call will be held on May 2nd at 2 p.m. Pacific time. This will be the first earnings call since the launch of the Apple Vision Pro, and Apple no longer talks about sales, but we should hear something about how well the Vision Pro's reception has been, and maybe when they're actually launching it elsewhere outside the United States. Apple the other day updated their App Store guidelines to allow for emulators and website links within music apps, but just in the EU. In their app review guidelines, they talk about what's allowed, and it's been updated with that information. I really wish a lot of these things would come to the United States. Of course, they're all optional, but just to have the option of sideloading and more would be nice, and it wouldn't fragment across the US and throughout other countries compared to what we have all over the place. So that's something that I would really like to see them update. Apple Vision Pro 180 content is great. If you've used an Apple Vision Pro and tried the 180-degree content, it's something that's really great, and there's a few episodes since launch, but there hasn't been anything new. Apple recently teased a new Prehistoric Planet immersive video that will launch on April 18th. Hopefully we'll get more of this content. One of them was really nice with someone highlighting, and you can get up close and see what that looks like, and you feel like you're there. However, there's been no updates since then, so it seems like the overall content has been a little bit slim. Hopefully we get much more in the future. Apple's head of Apple Watch has moved from the watch to AI as the car project has been scrapped as he was working on that. While Kevin Lynch still works on Apple Watch, he also works on AI to help with organization of the tasks of making AI a reality on iOS and other places as well. So it looks like he's just been moved around to help get things moving along. Also, Jony Ive, that used to work at Apple, that designed many of the great phones we've been using, is working with Sam Altman of OpenAI to develop a personal AI device and is currently seeking funding according to the information. So as more and more things come out, such as the Humane AI pin and others, we might see something from Jony Ive that's super slick as far as the overall design. If you live in Canada, you may be eligible for $150 from Apple due to a Batterygate settlement. To make a claim, you have to be a resident of Canada or a former resident except Quebec, and had an iPhone 6, 6 Plus, 6S, 6S Plus, or an iPhone SE with iOS 10.2.1 or later installed or downloaded, or an iPhone 7 or 7 Plus with iOS 11.2 or later. That had to be installed before December 21st, 2017. So if you had any of those and you actually meet those requirements, you will need the serial number from your device and you can make a claim. They actually have a website, I'll link it in the description, where you can actually make a claim, put in all of your information, give your resident information and more so that you can gain that $150. And I believe it covers more than just one device. So if you had many devices, you may be able to make more than one claim, but it may only allow for one. Be sure to check all the details at the website. Earlier this year, if you had Netflix, you've been familiar that they started to crack down on password sharing. Now Disney Plus is about to do the same thing starting in June, according to the Disney CEO Bob Iger in an interview with CNBC. So that's something that you may see pop up on your device if you've been sharing your password that they're going to be enforcing probably in June. Now, as far as deals this week, Best Buy has a big sale on many different Apple devices, so I'll link the best ones in the description. Also, there's $150 off the M2 13-inch MacBook Air, as well as deals on iPad Air down to $449. However, we could get some new ones soon, so maybe you'd want to hold off on that. And AirPods Pro 2, again, are down to $189.99, sold from Apple on Amazon. So I'll link all of those along with some others in the description below. Now this week we may or may not get iOS 17.5 Beta 2. We don't know 100% yet, as we don't know if this is going to be a bi-weekly update like they've done in the past, or if it's going to be weekly. But at this point, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll see iOS 17.5 Beta 2. We don't know. If there's no update, we can expect it the following week, as usually the first 2 to 3 betas are bi-weekly. But we don't really know, as Apple's really changed up their schedule recently. Also, we could see something along the lines of iOS 17.4.2, but probably not this week as we're not seeing any hints of it in databases, at least at this time. So maybe we'll get that before the release of iOS 17.5 to the public. Of course, the big news will be in June with iOS 18 at WWDC on June 10th. After the keynote, we'll see iOS 18 Beta 1's release and some others with watchOS 11 and many others. So we're looking forward to that. That's where all of the big features will be, though. And speaking of iOS 18, Apple continues to work on AI for iOS 18. This week, we actually learned that Apple worked with Shutterstock to license millions of images to help train its AI models. And just today, Apple also apparently is seeking a deal with PhotoBucket to license their images to train AI as well. So lots of that going into AI at Apple, so we could see some big changes, and the latest iteration using Realm's AI model that they developed are said to rival GPT-4. So we'll have to wait and see if it's really that good or something they're going to change in the future. Now, iPhone 16 models are expected to get a slight bump in screen size this year, going from 6.7 inches to 6.9. That will be due to the reduction of the bezel, according to the elec. So instead of having the bezel we have now, it could get even thinner to sort of fit in a similar sized frame and make it just have a slightly larger display. This is using a new technology called border reduction structure on the displays, so it just basically makes the wiring closer to the edge so that they can make the border smaller. We also got our first look at the general design of the iPhone 16 models with metal dummy units from Sonny Dixon on X or Twitter. That actually shows the new capture button in a similar design as iPhone 15 models, and it's basically what we expect. We have an updated action button, we have a new capture button, and of course all of the same sort of frame with titanium and more. So we have all of those things, and also the iPhone 16 models may use similar coloring techniques for the back of the phones as the current iPhone 15 models, where they sort of infuse the color into the glass just like the iPhone 15. So we could have something like that with some new colors such as rose and more. So I would love to see the infused glass. It makes for a really nice texture. Of course, we'd want some more pro-looking colors though as well. This week, Majin Buu on Twitter showed what appears to be cases for the upcoming iPhone SE 4. The phone looks similar to an iPhone 14 with a notch and a single camera as we expected. So we'll have a single camera just like we do on the current SE, but have a similar design to the iPhone 14 with a notch it seems as well. We now expect new iPads to launch the week of May 6th according to Mark Gurman. This was originally supposed to be the end of March or early April, but it seems there were some delays with the overall panels or other issues. To back this up, My Smart Price has actually spotted new iPads in the Indian regulatory database, which happens every time there's a new product launch, so it looks like they're getting pretty close. Also, Mark Gurman has said that the Apple retail stores will begin preparing to receive new marketing materials this week. The iPads Pro are said to get new OLED displays. Hopefully we don't have PWM with that. Possibly a landscape camera similar to the iPad 10th generation. A thinner design, and I would welcome that a little bit as long as it's more rigid, as this one's pretty easy to sort of flex or maybe even break. It could also get MagSafe charging on the back. And we're also expecting a new Apple Pencil, maybe with some squeeze gestures like we're seeing in iOS 17.5 code. Of course, we'll get a new chipset as well with M3 and possibly higher prices, which is something none of us really want, but we don't know what those prices will be just yet. iPad Air is set to have a new larger display, but not really much of a change other than that. However, iPad and iPad mini are expected later this year, it seems, so if you've been looking forward to a replacement for your iPad mini, you'll have to wait toward the end of the year, it seems, with updated processors. Apple's also been working on foldable iPads or devices for some time, and that's indicated by patents and rumors. But it seems Apple is getting more serious about exploring a foldable iPad. And I think this is where the foldables make the most sense, where you'd have a large device, you could fold it up, slip it into maybe a smaller backpack, and then bring it on the go, protecting its display. That would be a great use case. I've never been a huge fan of the foldable phones, as it just basically doubles their thickness and doesn't really give you a huge advantage and makes it more tedious to use as you have to open it every time. So some people love foldables, but in the case of the iPad, I think that's where it makes the most sense. Apple's also been working on new AirPods. We've known this for some time, and it seems they're working on lower cost AirPods to replace the older AirPods 2, along with a replacement for AirPods Max. Both are in the works, and according to analyst Jeff Poo, he expects them to be later this year. So maybe a lower cost replacement to AirPods 2, and of course AirPods Max 2 with USB-C, since we haven't seen that yet. Now we know Apple's been working on AI, but there's an odd bit of news where they've been working on projects such as robots. According to Mark Gurman, Apple is exploring smart robots that in some cases could follow you around and be an assistant at home, similar to what Amazon offers with its Astro robot. Apple's been exploring a tabletop device as well to move the display around with a robotic arm to follow you and react like a human, with it tilting and nodding, mimicking the other person on the FaceTime call. So some odd things. Of course, Apple's always testing new things, and what they actually release, though, is hard to say. Along with this, they're also working on the Home app. We've seen some mentions of that with HomeOS, and then they took that out of iOS 17.4. But it looks like Apple's working on some sort of display that would control your home. This would be great. You could carry it around your house maybe, control different things with your home, and that's something I would love to see that might be a little bit better than what we have here, or just maybe more consistency in general. That's something I would love to see with the next version, or maybe a new version or a new OS altogether with HomeOS. So Apple's been working on this for some time, but according to Mark Gurman, the Vision Pro development slowed down the home development, and now they're focusing more on home. So we could see more of this very soon. Apple's also working on a new Apple TV that could have a camera built in for FaceTime and allow for gesture controls. Now that we have continuity camera that works with the iPhone camera, that's something they could bring in that's built into Apple TV, but the gesture controls and what they've learned from Vision Pro could be great for accessibility users. Maybe that can't use a small remote, or maybe you could just use your voice, change channels, do other things that are a little bit more difficult to do with your hands. So maybe just gesture to turn up the volume or switch to the next track, or even go back. So I'd love to see something like that. What it could look like, though, we don't really know at this point. So that's all the news this past week. Lots of news about iOS 18. We can't wait for those new iPads. We haven't had those in a very long time, and hopefully we have some surprises there as well. Let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.